PUBG PGL Spring Invitational finishes up, and one kill decides it all. The Hungarians give 300,000 euros away to a League of Legends team, and a young Australian gets sucked into a sports program even though he's an eSports player. All that and more on today's Screenplay League. Hello and welcome to Screenplay League. As always, we are going to be having a discussion at the end. Today's discussion is whether games should be balanced around their competitive or their casual play. Joining me will be Nicky Richardson. Can't wait. But first, the news. This weekend, the PUBG PGL Spring Invitational took place. $100,000 up for grabs and 16 of the best PUBG teams from around the world. And the way this tournament worked was 16 rounds of PUBG were played, and every kill netted points, which basically accumulated over the course of the competition. And in the very end, it all came down to one kill separating the difference between first and second place. Now, for context, first place got 50 grand. That went to Ghost Gaming. The team in second place got 20k. So that 30,000 prize difference was literally settled by one digital kill. Imagine, if you will, being in that game and pinging off a few shots, you catch a guy with a helmet, and then all of a sudden he turns to you and drops you dead. You just lost 30 grand, amigo. That stings. In League of Legends news, the V4 Future Sports Festival took place in Hungary this weekend, with 300,000 euros given to a League of Legends team. And this is top tier talent, an incredible production value, and a massive, massive crowd watching some of the best players in the world. What did they do? They broke the trophy.
2018. március 24.
And while we're at it, look at this other trophy break from Heroes of the Storm from way back when.
North America showed up in strength and went to the wire. Tempo Storm making the region proud.
eSports. Last piece of Screenplay League news this week comes from Down Under. Monash University have now accepted an eSports player into their sports program, allowing them all the same fun benefits that a sporty person would have at university. And that player is Conrad Reimarek, aka Shocks, from the Australian professional COD team Mindfreak, who has been sucked on into that sports program, allowing him to defer his university degree for another year while he competes in Call of Duty World War II and potentially Black Ops 4 after that if he so chooses to. Here's a tweet from Conrad saying, officially on board the Monash University sports program due to them now recognizing esports as an actual sport, which now means I am able to take further time off of my degree and compete in the CWL this year. That was a long sentence. He should get punctuation in there, shouldn't he? Maybe he should stick to university, eh? Actually dope to see how far this has come, ecstatic to say the least. So he's clearly very happy about this, and so am I, because this weekend he and I will be in Birmingham at the CWL Birmingham event. They're playing for $200,000. I'll be commentating him. I hope he doesn't shit the bed like he did in Atlanta. While on the topic of big old crazy tournaments, this week the Overwatch League Stage 2 playoffs came to an end, and Nicky Boy's beloved Excelsior walked away with a win 3-2 over the Philadelphia Fusion. Bit of a surprise, because let's face it, Philly didn't expect them to get there, but hey man, my boy Fraggy swinging for the fences. Lovely to see Philly Fusion do well. Let's hope they don't fizzle out and finish at the bottom of the league later on this year. And that's it for this week's Screenplay League news. Now, to join me in discussion about whether games should be balanced around their competitive or casual play, it's Nick Richardson. Hey man, how you doing?
The answer is casual.
Really?
Nah, how's things?
I actually think you're not too far off of that, dude, because as we have briefly touched upon a lot of time, the casual audience is the predominant player base of a game. What do you play, Nick, competitively?
Yeah, okay, so I mean, mainly the things that I'm playing are competitive card games and MOBAs. Those are my two games that I play the most that are competitive. And the thing about this is that these are both genres of games where there is a huge amount of talk on the internet around their balance. I don't know, is it the same for something like Call of Duty?
Absolutely.
Are people having these constant conversations?
The word balance is thrown around very liberally and often without any knowledge behind it.
And right, so that's the thing. That I think it feels as though a lot of the time that a game developer who has a game that is really popular competitively but also as an esport, their trick is to go, okay, we've got people who are playing this at the top level, the best of the best of the best, and that the things that they are doing need to be so impeccably balanced around the way that they play this game to make it the most entertaining to watch and to make it something that doesn't get boring for them, because then that gets boring for the viewer. But there is also 30 million other people who play this game that you don't really hear about. And for me, whenever I'm reading Reddit, I'm on forums and that sort of thing about MOBAs and CCGs, the people who are obsessive enough to go on the Reddits and talk about balance are people who they're generally not esports players, but they watch this stuff. They like to think that they're competitive level. So therefore they get furious about every change that feels as though it's catering to a player base that is not the most elite, which by the way, you are not. The people playing, you are not, because I'm one of you and I am not the most elite player. But we want to emulate those people without thought for the fact that if you isolate the majority of your player base by balancing a game around strats that most people can't even do, then that's not helpful.
No, I think you're right. There is a silent majority, and that is typically the bulk of people who do play these games. When it comes to a game like Call of Duty, it's very, very different because the casual or public and the private match guys, the competitive guys, they're so vastly different in what they want from the game, in what they expect of the game, and how it to play. And a good example of that is the competitive community is up in arms right now about the way the fighter pilot kill streak works, because they're like, it is too easy to attain. It's like
explain this, because I don't give a shit.
When you ever play Call of Duty, you know when you play multiplayer, you get like 3 kills in a row, and it's like UAV standing by.
Send in the dogs.
Send in the dogs. Yeah. So this is like it's one of those, but it's a plane that kind of comes in and goes and does a full Dunkirk on the battlefield. It's very cool, really, really cool. That is quite easy to attain, and in a competitive match has a huge, huge advantage because big swing, see the whole map, kill as many people as you want, fly away. Really, really good. The competitive community are like, it's breaking the game. It's too easy to kill everyone in a single run, and it's making things too easy for people to get it. But when you look at the data, and this has come from Sledgehammer Games, they've told me this. The data correlated between the competitive guys and the casual guys doesn't line up in any way, shape, or form. So they're like, if we change that number for you guys, it impacts a hell of a lot more people, like 30 million more people, who don't give a rat's ass about this kill streak and how it impacts the game. And like, but the comp guys, because they're that very aggressive, psychotic minority, and bless them, I know if my livelihood was at stake because of some knobhead with a fighter pilot, I'd be annoyed as well.
Yeah.
But those guys are so vocal about it, but it just impacts the other side of the community, which again is bigger. It doesn't impact them in nearly as difficult a way.
I would actually argue that it impacts them in a completely different way. We're saying righty is esports, right?
Esports.
And lefty is me.
Yep.
Right? So esports is angry that it takes 3 kills to bring this guy in.
Yep, 3 kills.
Esports is doing this, is playing this game at this level specifically because they can constantly get 3 kills in a row. That's the whole reason they're playing this game and that they're where they are. Nick, that's so right. That's like gentle, soft, a little like that. I am excited to get 3 kills. I don't want something that is insanely cool, like having a dive bomb come in. I don't want that locked behind a 10 kill streak. No. Because I can't achieve that. Like, that's not something. And so for me, I go, okay, we can put that down. I feel as though it's not something that you want the majority of your player base to never see or never be able to do. And I think that that's the question. I mean, you know, look at shit like Overwatch, where you go, Lucio. Lucio is a character that most people are basically just going speed boost and heal, and I'll kind of zip around a bit. But then you watch high-level people, and their feet never touch the ground. Never. They're just bouncing in the air the entire time. And it's like, okay, cool. So you need to clamp down on Lucio's ability of how high he can move, the speeds that he can bop off things, and whatever. Because competitive people can break that. But at the same time, it's like, I want to feel as though there's a chance that I can, you know, make a bit of a jump.
You can bop from wall to wall.
Exactly, yeah. But you know, I can't actually do that if it's the most insanely difficult thing to do. And the beauty of esports, I think, and this is where, okay, I may offend you here.
So you try it.
I think that you and your profession is just marketing at the moment.
It is.
And
it's also funded by marketing as well.
Yeah, and I think it's really beautiful marketing, and I love it. And I would love to see one day esports be something that, you know, the world goes, oh yeah, this is like a legit thing. But
that can't happen yet because nobody owns football, but someone owns Overwatch.
So that's the argument, right? That you know, the game is you can only be played with the permission of the people who own that thing, and they're going to make that thing redundant and bring out a new thing, and they're going to put their energies into that. But the fact that it's marketing, when you look at competitive Dota or competitive Overwatch or Call of Duty, whatever, it is the idea that I'm watching people who are aspirational to my ability to be able to play. So if they're doing things that I cannot possibly do in real life, that I can't replicate, and that's a real problem, because the beauty of that compared to watching something like football, I watch football and I'm like, physically, my body cannot run that fast. Like, I cannot do anything that those people are doing on the field, but I have a chance of being able to pull off that move like that bop off the wall if I practice enough.
Yeah.
And so to put that too far out of reach of the layman person, then that's I think that's a bad thing.
Now, on that note, there's something to be said about some developers who do embrace the kind of competitive rule set that players create. So there's two kind of scenarios from what you said. We can we can create a game, we can play a game that's exactly the same for the casual and the competitive scene, like Overwatch, like Hearthstone, albeit they play the game in a different way.
But they have all the same tools and the same
game.
You're booting into the same server.
You're booting into the same server. Everyone's tracer moves the same. You know, there's no differences there. When you take it to most console-based shooters, the Halos, the Gears, the Call of Duties, even Rocket League to a very certain extent, the competitive scene is built around a custom rule set that usually players create because they're like, we know best, we know what makes a competitive title, so they take that and of their own agency build something that's very, very separate to what the developer originally intended. And that
so
creates...
they're turning off, like...
Yeah, so for example, in the Halo series, they would change the starting weapon and they would turn off the radars, and we were like, this is perfect. And yeah, it's a really great gaming experience, but you just created a huge schism, a divide. You've parted the Red Seas, and on this side is the happy casual player, and on this side is the competitive player.
Yeah.
And now, when a casual player watches the competitive game, they go, I recognize everything around this, but I know you're playing a very different game to the one that I boot up into and I don't have access to because it's really exclusive and difficult to get into that sort of scene, which it is. Now, I think that there's much to be said about a game, anything that Blizzard makes pretty much, and even, maybe not actually CSGO. CSGO's been changed a little bit, but there's much to be said about a game like Overwatch where everyone's on a level playing field, and it's literally how you play the game that differentiates you from the professional, casual, super psycho, diehard, crazy toxic player in matchmaking. You can do that.
Yeah.
And I think that if a game's going to have a nice long lifespan, it needs to be in this camp way more than it needs to be in the we created our own rule set, we the fans know best.
Yeah.
And not just because it is marketing at the end of the day. It is something that these massive, massive game developers have a huge amount of control over and vested interest in because they want you to keep playing their game. If you end up taking their shit, slapping your own bit of paint on it and calling it your own, you're not really making any friends. And it goes to show with like Bungie's relationship with the competitive community in the old Halo days was pretty bad. They didn't really want to acknowledge us.
Right.
Because we'd taken their game and bastardized it in our own way. And we were peddling this as like the way the game should be played.
And if these people drop off, then there's no one watching this thing.
No
so
one.
This thing doesn't need to exist because it's not going to make any money because no one's actually playing the game. And ultimately, I think the thing is, as long as you don't dumb it down so much that it's like, you know, hitboxes are this big on every person's head and that sort of thing. If you balance it to make it a fun game to play, if it has enough gameplay depth, then your competitive scene is always going to be okay.
Always going to be.
Your competitive scene is going to find the ways that they want to play this game because they're using a tool set that has a lot of depth. And it's just as long as the depth isn't, all the good stuff is down here, and there's just a lot of like, you know, very basic level gameplay at the top that your casual audience is accessing. It should be good stuff the whole way down, and then you know your esports players are just going to be working down this level. There's a lot of like table-related metaphors about camps and holes, and I think that's probably how they balance competitive games.
Well, that's it for this week's Screenplay League. If you liked what you saw, press the like button. If you really hated what you saw, click the dislike button twice because you really didn't like it, did you? Leave a comment and please subscribe. And actually, in the comments, let us know your favorite competitive titles that your developers have bastardized through the division of a community. Or if they patched some shit that you loved, let us know. Also watch these videos. Thanks, Nick.